he began, and then corrected himself. No, that's inaccurate. He's not my brother, not really, but this new child that my family takes care of. His name's Gabriel. Yes, I know Gabriel. Well, he's right at the age where he's learning so much. He grabs toys when we hold them in front of him. My father says he's learning small muscle control, and he's really cute. The giver nodded. But now that I can see colors, at least sometimes, I was just thinking, what if we could hold things up that were bright red or bright yellow, and he could choose, instead of the sameness? He might make the wrong choices. Oh. Jonas was silent for a minute. Oh, I see what you mean. It wouldn't matter for a new child's toy, but later it does matter, doesn't it? We don't dare let people make choices of their own. Not safe? The giver suggested. Definitely not safe, Jonas said with certainty. What if they were allowed to choose their own mate, and chose wrong? Or what if, he went on, almost laughing at the absurdity, they chose their own jobs? Frightening, isn't it? The giver said. Jonas chuckled. Very frightening. I can't even imagine it. We really have to protect people from wrong choices. It's safer. Yes, Jonas agreed. Much safer. But when the conversation turned to other things, Jonas was left still with a feeling of frustration that he didn't understand. He found that he was often angry now.
Okay, so my question is, what's going on with the giver? Why is he asking these questions? Go, Erwin.
Okay, so I feel like he's asking the questions instead of giving answers because he wants Jonas to figure it out for himself more than him just relying on the giver for all of the answers, because he'll never be able to learn if you just get answers instead of having to think through it.
Does that remind you of anything?
It reminds me of you. The train is the giver.
Yes, I will give you my knowledge. Palmer.
I think another reason why he's asking the questions.
Louder, please.
I think another reason why he's asking these questions is to see how Jonas thinks of it, so maybe he can help him understand everything that he's learning about better.
Okay. Fair. Abby, really loud.
So kind of like Autumn. So if he answered, if the giver answered a question, then Jonas might just think, oh, I'm just gonna go with what the giver said, even though he might have a different opinion.
Right. Because he's used to that. Right? He's used to being dictated to and conforming his ideas and ideals based on what he's supposed to do. Cameron.
I feel like when people ask you questions, it makes you think deeper than them just telling you. So, and that's why teachers ask so many questions instead of just telling you. They ask you, well, how do you do it, or what? Because math, for champ, she asked us, well, how would you do it, and then she helps us.
Right. It's all about the thinking process. Yes. Last but not least, go. Louder. Ah.
It kind of reminds me of the surprise seminar, because the guy who went to that part, he just kind of asked everybody for them to think about it themselves and just question their own things.
Right, right. And that's what philosophies are, the way that you think about big picture ideas. Ooh, we gotta keep going. I know. That's why you need to be loud. Go.
Passionately angry at his group mates that were satisfied with their lives, which had none of the vibrance his own was taking on. And he was angry at himself that he couldn't change that for them. He tried, without asking permission from the giver, because he feared, or he knew that it would be denied. He tried to give his new awareness to his friends. Asher, Jonas said one morning, look at those flowers very carefully. They were standing beside a bed of geraniums planted near the Hall of Open Records. He put his hands on Asher's shoulders and concentrated on the red of the petals, trying to hold it as long as he could, and trying at the same time to transmit the awareness of red to his friend. What's the matter? Asher asked uneasily. Is something wrong? He moved away from Jonas's hands. It was extremely rude for one citizen to touch another outside of family units. No, nothing. I thought for a minute that they were wilting, and we should let the gardening crew know that they needed more watering. Jonas sighed and turned away. One evening he came home from his training weighted with new knowledge. The giver had chosen a startling and disturbing memory that day. Under the touch of his hands, Jonas had found himself suddenly in a place that was completely alien. Hot and windswept under a vast blue sky, There were tufts of sparse grass, a few bushes and rocks, and nearby he could see an area of thicker vegetation, broad low trees outlined against the sky. He could hear noises, the sharp crack of weapons. He perceived the word guns, and then shouts, and an immense crashing thud as something fell, tearing branches from the trees. He heard voices calling to one another. Peering from the place where he stood hidden behind some shrubbery, he was reminded of what the giver had told him, that there had been a time when flesh had different colors. 2 of these men had dark brown skin, the others were light. Going closer, he watched them hack the tusks from a motionless elephant on the ground, and haul them away, spattered with blood. He felt himself overwhelmed with a new perception of color he knew as red. Then the men were gone, speeding toward the horizon in a vehicle that spit pebbles from its whirling tires. One hit his forehead and stung him there, but the men...
Okay, so tell me what was going on in this memory. What do you perceive? Someone who I have not spoken to yet. Go ahead, Jansen. I kind of spoke to you, though.
You first read it.
Now, nice and loud, I am recording.
When you first read it, it says like there's 2 different colors, dark and white skin. At first I thought it was more like a war, but then it said like an elephant terminology, so it sounded like they were hunting elephants, and then it sort of angry about that in a way.
What are those people called? Does anybody know? Reinhardt?
Poachers.
Poachers. Is this legal?
No.
No. So I know maybe in the country you guys see no poaching, and that's just basically saying you cannot kill animals without licenses, and these animals you just can't kill legally, elephants. So people do it anyway because there's private collectors willing to pay a lot of money for these endangered species or protected species. And what was the color red that he learned about that was different than the apple or the hair or the faces of the people in the audience? Red. Blood. Had he experienced that before? Cameron.
I thought it was kind of cool.
Louder.
I thought it was kind of cool because he said this new perception of the color he has red, because colors can have different meaning. Like sometimes you can see yellow in the sun and in flowers, but you can also see it in fire.
Mm-hmm.
And red can be used as hearts, but it can also be used as blood.
Mm-hmm.
So some colors are good. Like there's different shades of colors can be good and bad. So yeah.
Very good. Jansen.
Back to 2012.
Louder.
Not 2012, but back a few minutes back, when we were talking about philosophies,
Mm-hmm.
it reminded me of Jesus because he would always ask questions to his disciples, and also try to be everyone be wise, intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
So that reminded me of the Bible.
Yeah, helping you make your own connections in tough situations. I mean, that's really kind of like the role of a parent, helping you navigate your own thoughts and ideas and perceptions. How you perceive things are based on your experiences a lot of times. Okay, we got to keep going.
Memory continued, though Jonas ached now for it to end. Now he saw another elephant emerge from the place where it stood hidden in the trees. Very slowly it walked toward the mutilated body and looked down. With its sinuous trunk, it stroked the huge corpse. Then it
Mutilate,
reached up, broke some leafy
torture
branches
by,
with a
or
snap,
injure by
and draped them
destroying.
over the mass of torn thick flesh. Finally it tilted its massive head, raised its trunk, and roared into the empty landscape. Jonas had never heard such a sound. It was a sound of rage and grief, and it seemed never to end. He could still hear it when he opened his eyes and lay anguished on the bed where he received the memories. It continued to roar into his consciousness as he pedaled slowly home. "Lily?" he asked that evening when his sister took her comfort object, the stuffed elephant from the shelf. "Did you know that once there really were elephants? Live ones?" She glanced down at the ragged comfort object and grinned. "Right," she said skeptically. "Sure, Jonas." Jonas went and sat beside them while his father untied Lily's hair ribbons and combed her hair. He placed one hand on each of their shoulders. With all of his being, he tried to give each of them a piece of the memory, not of the tortured cry of the elephant, but of the being of the elephant, of the towering immense creature, and the meticulous touch with which it had tended its friend at the end. But his father continued to comb Lily's long hair, and Lily, impatient, had finally wiggled under her brother's touch. "Jonas," she said, "you're hurting me with your hand." "I apologize for hurting you, Lily," Jonas mumbled and took his hand away. "Accept your apology," Lily responded indifferently, stroking the lifeless elephant. "Giver?" Jonas asked once, as they prepared for the day's work. "Don't you have a spouse? Aren't you allowed to apply for one?" Although he was exempted from the rules against rudeness, he was aware that this was a rude question, but the giver had encouraged all of his questions, not seeming to be embarrassed or offended by even the most personal. The giver chuckled. "No, there's no rule against it. And I did have a spouse. You're forgetting how old I am, Jonas. My former spouse lives now with the childless adults."
Oh. Alright, we gotta stop there because we're gone in 3 minutes, guys. Interesting question. I believe somebody asked that question in class, right? Someone, I think it was this class, asked, no, maybe they asked where does the giver go after, I guess maybe he transfers all these memories. Does he go to the house of the old? Does he get to have his own family? So, he answered that wonderful question. Ronnie!
My question is, you know how it talks about him having...
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
Say that again.
Now it talks about Jonas having pale eyes.
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
I feel like that might have something to do with how he can see colors. It says that also the giver has pale eyes, but Gabriel does too. So that makes me think like something special is going to happen in Gabriel's future also.
Okay. Sounds great. Alright, you guys are doing an amazing job. Keep it up. Gabriel sounds like an angry name. Did you say that? Oh, well, there was a very important angel named Gabriel in the Bible. So maybe that's where you're getting that from.